Imagine this, a grand estate. Velvet walls, marble floors, silver spoons clinking against porcelain. And somewhere near the kitchen, behind the laughter and the wine, a little boy waits in silence, barefoot, invisible, watching. His mother's in uniform, polished, quiet, respectful, cleaning the dishes, folding napkins, smiling at jokes that sting. And her son, he's the helps kid. Not a guest, not a name worth remembering, just a shadow in the corner. Until someone says, "Let him play, it'll be funny." They laugh, they don't know what's coming. But you're about to find out. This is a story of class, cruelty, and one genius move that changed everything. And if you've ever been underestimated, if you've ever felt small in a room built to make you disappear, you need to hear what happened next. Before we dive in, do this one thing. Like this video so more people see the truth behind stories like this. And if you believe genius can come from anywhere, especially from the places the world ignores, hit subscribe. We tell stories no one else dares to tell. Because sometimes the quietest kids checkmate kings. They called it the Whitewood Estate, a sprawling mansion nestled on a hilltop, overlooking the city, where champagne flowed like water and everyone wore secrets under silk and satin. The kind of place where money wasn't just spent, it was displayed, paraded, whispered into conversations like perfume. In the corners of this world, invisible hands kept everything shining. One of those hands belonged to Amina, the maid, mid-30s, West African, proud-spined and quiet. Her accent softened over years of swallowing her own voice to keep the job. And following a few steps behind her, always barefoot, always watchful, was her 12-year-old son, Malik. Malik didn't belong there. Not really. He knew it. So did everyone else. But every school holiday, when Amina couldn't leave him alone in their shared one-room apartment, she brought him with her. He was instructed to stay quiet, out of sight, away from the guests, to never touch, never speak unless spoken to, and especially never disturb the people who lived upstairs. But Malik was curious, painfully curious. He'd walk through the marble halls with wide eyes, his fingers brushing the smooth wood of antique banisters, the velvet of expensive curtains. He watched the guests with their gold cufflinks and practiced laughs. He memorized how they talked, how confidence seemed to pour from their mouths like wine. He didn't speak much, but his mind never stopped moving. Most afternoons, when the household settled into a sleepy rhythm, Malik would tiptoe into the sunroom. There, half hidden in the far corner behind a row of indoor palms, was an old chessboard, handcrafted ivory and ebony pieces gleaming under the sunlight. It belonged to the millionaire himself, Mr. Langford, a tech tycoon who built an empire out of software and stock. He played with guests sometimes, bragged about how he once almost beat a grandmaster, but when no one was around, Malik would sit there, quiet, still, reenacting famous chess games he had read about in borrowed books, memorizing moves, solving puzzles in his head. He had no board at home, no internet, but his mind built entire matches from memory. He wasn't just good, he was different. He saw patterns where others saw confusion. He'd spot mate in 3 scenarios just by glancing at a position. He understood silence, timing, anticipation. Chess wasn't a game for him, it was a language, one that made sense when the rest of the world didn't. But nobody saw that. Not yet. They just saw the maid's son, brown-skinned, thin, clothes faded from hand-me-downs, no brand-name sneakers, no status, no story, until the Langfords decided to throw a weekend gathering, a small affair they called it, which meant limousines, caviar, photographers and half the city's elite milling about the mansion like royalty. The air was thick with money and arrogance. Waiters floated like ghosts with trays of champagne. The pianist played jazz this time, softer, louder, always there. And Malik, he was in the shadows again, carrying trays, folding napkins, standing beside his mother as she worked 10 times harder than the guests ever would. But then it happened, that moment, the one that cracked everything open. Mr. Langford, half tipsy and glowing with self-importance, had just finished losing a casual chess match to a retired banker in front of a small audience in the sunroom. He laughed it off, of course, brushing imaginary dust off his blazer. The crowd chuckled politely. That's when he noticed Malik, standing silently by the doorway, tray in hand, eyes fixed on the board. Langford squinted. "You like chess, boy?" Malik blinked. A few guests turned. "Yes, sir," he said softly. "Very much." Langford smirked. The kind of smirk that said this will be good for a laugh. "You ever played before?" "Yes, sir." The room got quiet. Langford chuckled. The crowd leaned in. A few phones tilted forward, ready to record something amusing. A Maid son, playing the Millionaire. "All right then." Langford clapped his hands. "Let's give the Prodigy a shot, shall we?" There were a few polite laughs. One of the women whispered, "He's adorable." Another said, "This'll be quick." Malik said nothing. He stepped forward, calm, quiet, and when he sat across from Langford, the board between them, the room held its breath. His hands moved slowly, gracefully, like he'd done this 1,000 times in his head, because he had. Langford opened with E4, a classic, confident. Malik replied with C5, Sicilian defense, and just like that, the game had begun. But they had no idea what they had just started. The pieces were set. White, Mr. Langford. Rich, relaxed, laughing. Black, Malik, the maid's boy, calm, silent, watching. The crowd hadn't left after scene 1. They'd grown. The sunroom now echoed with whispers, raised eyebrows, clinking glasses. A low tide of judgment flowed through the polished space as Langford cracked his knuckles and leaned in. "Don't worry, son, I'll go easy on you." The joke landed. A few chuckles fluttered through the air. Someone in the back muttered, "This'll be over by dessert." But Malik didn't flinch. He just stared at the board as if the pieces were already moving in his mind. Langford opened. A classic, confident, an invitation. Malik replied with a Sicilian defense. Aggressive, technical. Not a move a casual player uses. Certainly not a houseboy. A murmur rose. Langford raised a brow. He didn't expect that. Still, he smirked. "Someone's been reading books, huh?" Malik's lips barely moved. "Many books, sir." By move 5, Langford's smile had started to fade. Not publicly, but something in his posture shifted. His moves slowed. His hands, which had once moved with casual flair, now hovered, uncertain. Malik wasn't reacting like a child trying to impress. He was guiding the board, dictating rhythm, controlling space. The guests sensed it too. What began as a joke started to feel strange, uncomfortable. Langford's wife had stopped laughing. A teenage guest whispered, "Wait, he's actually good." And Malik, he was silent, dead silent. Only his fingers moved, elegant, unshaking. He looked at the board like it was a story he already knew the ending to. By move 12, Langford had made his first mistake, a greedy bishop capture. Malik didn't even pause. He punished it with a quiet queenside maneuver, one that signaled preparation, pressure, intention. Langford swallowed, laughed awkwardly. "You've been practicing, I see." "Yes, sir," Malik replied. "Every day." Move 19, a subtle pawn advance. Move 20, knight repositioned. 21, bishop pin. Langford leaned back, blinking. "Wait, is that a—" He stopped. It was a trap, and he was in it. The crowd leaned in. People were whispering now, tapping their phones under the table, recording discreetly. This wasn't funny anymore. It was surgical, stunning. A man from the back, a known investor, said under his breath, "That's not beginner chess, that's calculated play." Langford's face changed, no longer amused. Now he was sweating. Move 23. Langford castled kingside to escape the build-up. Malik struck with precision, a knight fork devastating. Langford's rook was gone. The room gasped. Langford stared at the board like it had betrayed him. "Did you learn this online?" Malik's eyes didn't rise. "No, sir. From my mother's stories and a few old books." He said it so simply, so softly, and somehow that made it louder than any scream. This wasn't luck. This was genius honed in silence. While other kids played video games, Malik had sat under flickering lights reading borrowed chess books with missing pages. He had drawn boards on cardboard, cut up soda bottle caps to use as pieces. He'd taught himself openings and counterplays, memorized the immortal game, practiced with himself in mirrors, because life didn't give him playmates, it gave him silence, and in silence he built his mind like a blade. Langford. He had tutors, apps, endless time, and still, here he was, on defense. By move 27, Langford's queen was under threat. His pawns were shattered, his clock ticking, sweat forming at his temples. By now, no one was talking. Every guest was watching, silent still. The pianist had stopped playing. Even the waiters had frozen near the doorway. Move 30, a rook slide. Move 31, queen sack. Yes, a queen sacrifice. Gasps filled the air. No way, he didn't just. He did. It wasn't a mistake. It was the end game, a famous trap. Elegant, vicious. Langford took the queen. Malik moved. Check. Langford blinked. Another move. Check again. He stammered now. His hands shook. His eyes darted across the board like it had become alien. Final move. Checkmate. Nobody clapped. Not yet. There was a silence too deep for applause. Langford sat frozen, still calculating, still in disbelief. Malik looked up. Finally, his eyes weren't angry or smug, just still. He stood slowly, bowed. "Thank you for the game, sir," and he turned away. The maid, his mother, stood at the doorway, holding a tray, tears brimming, but her posture perfect, strong, beautiful. She had worked in that house for 7 years. They had never once asked her son's name, until now. They didn't speak at first. No one did. The room just stood there, hollowed out by what they'd just witnessed. You could hear the clock ticking, the glasses settling on silver trays, the last breath of an expensive scent hanging in the air. Langford hadn't moved. His hand still hovered near the bishop, like maybe, just maybe, he could undo the last move, rewind the humiliation, salvage whatever pride was left in front of this room full of people who had always clapped when he won. But not today. Today the room belonged to someone else. Malik walked away slowly, eyes low, face calm, not triumphant, not smug, just steady, as if he'd been here before, in this very moment, in his mind 1,000 times. He passed through the crowd like a ghost finally being seen, and for the first time the air parted for him. They didn't look past him anymore. They looked at him. One woman gasped quietly, "He's only 12. Someone else whispered, "That wasn't just skill, that was art." Even the pianist, who had resumed a soft, unsure tune in the background, missed a few notes before steadying again. Mr. Langford finally stood, his chair scraping awkwardly across the polished floor, cutting through the silence. His lips moved, but no sound came out. His eyes flicked toward Malik, then toward Amina, then back to the board like he was hoping the pieces might rearrange themselves and restore his dignity. But they didn't. Instead, his teenage daughter Chloe broke the moment. She stepped forward, wide-eyed and breathless, looking at Malik like she'd just witnessed something sacred. "Where did you learn that?" she asked, not mockingly, not with pity, just pure awe. Malik looked at her, shy at first, then offered a small answer that somehow said everything. "I listen." She smiled, genuinely. For once she saw more than a uniform, more than a last name, more than a status. She saw him. And the others. The guests. The investors, the wives with pearls and husbands with secrets, they all began seeing too. Questions began swirling, quiet but urgent. Does he have a coach? Has he ever competed? Where does he go to school? Amina, standing at the edge with trembling hands still holding that untouched tray, suddenly became the most important woman in the room, and for once it had nothing to do with service. Everything about her radiated something new now, something even the richest people in that room couldn't buy: dignity. She didn't cry, but her eyes glistened, not just for what her son had done, but because she knew, in that very moment, everything had changed, not just for Malik, for her, for all the times she'd been spoken over, shushed, ordered, ignored, for every time someone looked right through her. Malik had just forced them to see her, see them. Outside, night had fallen. City lights twinkled below the hill, like stars trying to compete with what had just happened inside the mansion. Malik and Amina stood near the service gate, their shift finally over, the cool air brushing against their skin. Amina bent down slightly to look into her son's eyes. "You were brave," she whispered. He looked up at her. "I didn't do it to embarrass him." "I know," she said. "You did it because you're meant for more." He nodded slowly, then smiled. The kind of smile that comes when a door you never knew existed opens right in front of you. From behind they heard hurried footsteps. Chloe, The daughter came running out, breathless again, a tablet in her hand. "Wait," she called. Can I show you something?" Malik turned. "What is it?" "There's this online scholarship platform," she said, tapping on her screen. "Chess academies, international tournaments, mentorship programs. I think you could be incredible." Amina stepped forward, unsure. "We don't have a laptop. We barely have Wi-Fi at home." Chloe smiled. "You do now. My dad owes you at least that much." She held out the tablet. Malik blinked. "You're giving me this?" "No," she grinned. "I'm lending it until you become famous. Then you can autograph it for me." They laughed together. Not rich kid laughs or houseboy laughs. Just two kids in the night air, finally meeting where it mattered. As they walked away from the mansion, down the winding driveway, Amina holding her son's hand and the tablet tucked beneath his arm, something in the air felt different. Not just the wind, but everything. He had walked into that house, the maid's son, a background character in someone else's world. But now he was the main story, and this was just the beginning. The video had been uploaded as a joke, just a clip, 10 seconds long, captured by one of the guests who had laughed when Langford said, "I'll go easy on you." It showed the setup, the smug grin, the confident opening move, and then Malik, calm, focused, that pin-drop silence after the Queen's sacrifice, and then the checkmate, 10 seconds, posted with a snarky caption, "When the help embarrasses the host," went viral overnight. It was shared, reshared, stitched, quoted. Chess influencers broke it down move by move. A grandmaster on YouTube paused at move 22 and said, "Whoever this kid is, he doesn't play like a beginner. He plays like someone who breathes chess." Black Twitter lit up. Comments poured in like a waterfall. "Put this boy in a tournament right now." They tried to laugh at him, but he laughed back with his mind. "This is why you treat everyone with respect." Someone tracked Malik's name from the clip. Someone else found out where Amina worked. By the next morning, her inbox was full, and so was Langford's. Only his was full of outrage. A headline emerged: "Rich family's maid son destroys millionaire in live chess game." Then another: "Prodigy or underdog. Meet Malik, the boy who silenced a room of millionaires." Langford's publicist tried to do damage control, spinning it as a moment of encouragement gone viral. But the internet had already chosen its narrative, and it wasn't in his favor. Meanwhile, Malik had no idea what was happening. He didn't have social media, no phone, just the borrowed tablet Chloe had given him and an old desktop computer at the community center. But by the time he walked into school that Monday, something was different. Eyes followed him in the hall. The kids who used to whisper now stared in wide-eyed awe. One of the teachers held open the door a second longer than usual, blinking like she wasn't sure if she was dreaming. In class, he pulled out his notebook like always, sat in the back like always, but now kids leaned closer, like maybe brilliance could rub off on them if they sat near it long enough. At break, his chess club, 2 kids and a busted plastic board, suddenly had 12 members, and counting. He tried to stay the same, sit the same, speak the same. But something had shifted. He was no longer invisible. He was seen. Back at the Langford estate, the storm had only just begun. Donors to Langford's upcoming real estate project began to back out. "We can't be associated with elitist mockery," one had emailed. His wife avoided public functions. Even Chloe had taken a step back, not in shame, but in reflection. She started asking questions at home about the other staff, about what her father really believed. That week, Malik received a letter, an envelope with gold trim. Inside, invitation to the National Junior Chess Qualifiers, sponsored, all travel paid, special mention, discovered through remarkable viral brilliance. Amina read it twice, then a third time. Tears filled her eyes, but she didn't let them fall. Instead, she stood behind her son at the kitchen table, placed her hands on his shoulders, and said the words he would carry with him forever. "You didn't just play a game, Malik. You started something." That evening, Chloe messaged him, a simple line, "You ready for what's next?" He replied, "I was born ready. I just had to wait for the world to catch up." The air inside the Grand Convention Hall buzzed with whispers and nerves. Marble floors, velvet ropes, digital screens with names scrolling like royalty. The National Junior Chess Qualifiers had never seen this much press. Not because of a new format, not because of a visiting grandmaster, but because of a kid. A boy with second-hand shoes and no formal coach. Malik. His name had become legend in online circles, the houseboy who checkmated the Millionaire. He was now seated across a ranked player in round 3, someone who had trained at international camps, had personal tutors, wore brand new polished loafers. But Malik, he wore his only good shirt, a dark green button-up, his collar slightly wrinkled, his eyes calm, focused, and his mother was seated in the front row, not in a maid's uniform, but in a dress she'd never dared wear before. Simple, elegant, blue like dignity. Her hands clasped tightly, her chin raised. Across the room, the Langfords sat silently. Chloe had insisted they come. Mr. Langford hadn't spoken much since that night. But today, he came, not to be seen, but to watch. He had to. The round began. Move after move. Malik's style wasn't flashy. It was quiet, cold, beautiful, like watching a symphony with no conductor, just the music playing itself. His opponent tried mind games, glancing up, sighing loudly, clicking the clock aggressively, trying to provoke. But Malik, he didn't blink, didn't twitch, because when you've played in silence your whole life, noise doesn't shake you. By move 24, the board was broken. His opponent leaned back, sighing. Another sacrificial trap had worked. Another silent gasp rippled through the room. One more move, checkmate, and the room erupted, not in noise, but in stillness. People stood, one by one, a slow rising ovation of awe, respect and disbelief. Judges, coaches, even his defeated opponent rose. Malik didn't smile wide or cheer. He just turned slowly toward the front row, toward the woman who'd washed those green shirts, cooked in silence, cleaned windows she'd never been allowed to look through. And now Amina stood, not clapping, crying. After the event, reporters pushed forward. "Mr. Malik, how did you learn all this? Will you be signing with a national coach? Do you have plans to go pro?" He answered humbly, quietly, always ending with, "Everything I know started with my mother. She taught me to think before I speak, to plan before I move, and to be strong, especially when the world isn't watching." That clip, it made headlines again. Weeks later, Malik received an offer, a full scholarship to the best chess academy in the country, housing, coaching, travel support, and more than that, dignity. They invited Amina to speak at the same event. She stepped up nervously, hands shaking, voice breaking. "I came into this world being told to stay silent, to stay behind. But today, I stand beside my son because he showed the world that brilliance isn't born in wealth. It's born in quiet places, where love and sacrifice live." The hall went still, and then everyone stood again. That night, Chloe messaged Malik. "You know what you are?" "What?" He typed back. "You're not just a prodigy, you're proof." "Proof of what?" "That when the world laughs at the wrong person, it teaches us who we should really be clapping for." Malik didn't set out to change anyone's mind. He just wanted to play, to think, to be heard in a world that only saw his silence. But somehow, with nothing more than a second-hand shirt, a mind sharpened in the shadows, and a mother's quiet love behind him, he did more than win a game. He turned the whole world's attention, and in doing so, he reminded us all that greatness doesn't always wear a suit, that genius doesn't need permission, and that dignity isn't something you're given, it's something you carry with you, even when no one's watching. So if this story touched you, don't scroll away. Leave a comment for Malik. Tap like if you believe stories like his deserve to be heard. And subscribe, not just for more stories like this, but because every time we share one, we make it harder for the world to ignore brilliance in the quiet places. Because next time, it might not be Malik. It might be someone you know, someone who's never been seen until now.